fine Friday morning. What we've got coming up for you is a short, sharp and hopefully sweet 15-minute session all about how to really make those presentations pop for you. My name's Christine. I shall be your Google Digital Garage trainer this morning. I've been a marketeer for more years than I care to remember, and in that time I have had to do hundreds and possibly thousands of presentations. So I'm hoping to impart some of that experience to you as well this morning. Alongside, I've got Fran today. Fran's our moderator. Fran's in the chat right now. Fran is going to be helping you out with maybe dropping you some links, answering your questions as we go through. Drop into the chat, say hi to Fran, and let's know what's on your mind this morning. Fran's another one of our extremely experienced Google Digital Garage coaches, has been working on the project for a good long time as well. So lots of help available to you this morning. A couple of bits of housekeeping for you. First up, to chat with Fran in the chat, you're going to need to be signed into your YouTube account. So pop up to the right-hand side there to do that. We're going to keep this session live for you till about lunchtime tomorrow. So do feel free to watch through, ask your questions as you go, but then you can use the link you used to get here this morning to come back to the session and rewatch any sections you need to. Anything else that we're running, we've got live webinars, we've got live face-to-face events touring the country, we've got some one-to-ones available to book. Any of our content that you need some help with, check out the website. It's linked in the description below, and that will help you out with what we've got. All right then. As I say, short, sharp power session for you this morning. What we're going to take the next 15 minutes talking about is graphics and visuals and how to use images to really reinforce your messaging. So we'll think about understanding some of the impact of those great graphics, why you might want to do it. And then I've got some top tips for you. I've got 5 top tips that are going to help you, hopefully, to make your next presentation pop. So when it comes to graphics, the point about graphics is that they really do reinforce. What you're doing when you use graphics is you are engaging more different parts of your audience's brain. So when people hear information, they're likely to remember only 10% of that information 3 days later. However, if we pair a relevant image with that same information, people retained 65% of that information 3 days later. So here's my lovely graphic that says that 55%, the difference between 65 and 10%, so 55% more information is retained when graphics are used. It's because you are engaging different parts of the brain. You're bringing out the key things that I want you to remember. I'm going to talk to you for 15 minutes straight, but if I want you to remember anything, the key points I want you to remember, I'm going to highlight with graphics to help that stickiness in your brain. So graphics are very, very useful, but not just in presentations. Think about the world around you. We are surrounded by symbols, by graphics, by icons. I was thinking about, traveling and visiting different countries, or people visiting our country. You can still see what's around you when you don't understand the language because graphics are used. So graphics help you to communicate. They tell us to know what to do. Even, you look at some lots of new products don't come with instruction books anymore. You'll get pictures so that they don't have to translate them into all the kinds of different languages. Okay, images help our understanding. They help us across those language barriers. They help us to retain. But beyond that, they're going to help us to tell our story. There's the old saying that, a picture tells a story of 1,000 words. Those pictures really bring to life and help the understanding. They'll help us make things more memorable, as we mentioned before, helping us to retain information. But what's really key is I could try and use 1,000 words to describe a difficult concept, or I can pop up a well-chosen graph or table or image that helps us to conceptualize even the trickiest of concepts. So now we know why it's important. We're going to take a look at a few tools, a few top tips that are going to help you to make those presentations pop, help to use the power of those graphics to really help you tell your story, persuade people, whatever it is you want to do. So first up, I want to talk about the font, okay? Because fonts are one of the first things that people see when they look at your design. If you want to make it easy for people to understand what you've got to say, you want to make it as simple as possible for them to read. So top tip for you is limit yourself to 2 fonts throughout your presentation. Don't start mixing it up too much with lots of different fonts. And more than that, don't keep changing those fonts too much in terms of sizing and things. Use the size of those fonts to highlight key pieces of information. And when you choose your font, make sure it's a clear, easy to read font. There are beautiful swirly-whirly script-type fonts available. But actually, make sure that the fonts are as easy as possible to read, means the brain will spend less time deciphering what the letters say and more time absorbing your messages. So the brain finds it much harder to read those complex fonts, so keep it simple for your audience. Here we've got our great example of, it's very easy to tell with this font chosen on this first item, what is the important part. Our brains will spend more time deciphering this, and actually that sale in a different font should be as important as everything else. So it looks messy from a design point of view. It's not a very nice thing to look at anyway. They've done too much, really. They've tried just a little bit too hard. Now I want to think about colour, because colours we use when we're making our presentations to make it look interesting, to make it look pretty. But there again, we can try a bit too hard. So my suggestion is that you limit your colour palette. So pick a couple of main colours that you want to use, no more than 3 main colours, and try to make those colours complement each other. So you might have a colour that you're going to use for your main highlights, a secondary colour that's going to, show up and contrast against, and then maybe a neutral colour as well. So with what we're trying to do here is play with light and dark, to play with contrast, to make things really clear. Bear in mind that very light colours on a light background are going to fade away to nothing anyway. So those colours have to be bold enough that they do contrast with your background as well, which I guess is your 4th colour. Trying to keep a plain background is going to make it much easier to read. And we'll talk a little bit about accessibility and reading things in a moment. You use your colours to draw attention to key information. Use your colours to be consistent and make your slide presentation feel cohesive. And also, if you can very early on show which colours are used for highlight the important part, which colours maybe giving secondary information, then the audience's brains will get used to that format and will spend less time working out what's on the slide and more time understanding what you're saying. Here in this second image, in these images, you can see that what we actually have on this particular graph is monthly income, and we've got item 1 and item 2 against each other each month. Item 1, item 2, item 1, item 2. Here in this graph, the second time, they've still got item 1, item 2, and they've gone with different colours and lights and darks. We spend more time working out, wondering what the different colours mean. It's very easy to see that for this month, we compare blue with blue with blue. And we can see it's very easy to understand. So in the second image, the change in colours actually doesn't hold any meaning, creates confusion and that extra unnecessary information. I spend more time worrying about what's on the graph than I do about understanding it. Now we're going to think about hierarchy. So when we change the size of elements, you can really almost, without any thought needed for the audience, illustrate the importance of things. I'm actually going to take a look at the second image on this one to illustrate. Hierarchy, we can talk about using a hierarchy of images, but also a hierarchy of your text. So when we're talking about fonts, one of the things is the size changes. Size changes highlight what's important, highlight what we want to need. With these images, they're saying the best sellers are cappuccino, Americano, and mocha, but we don't know. They're all the same size. We don't know. Are they all selling similarly? Does it matter really which between? Here, they've used a really nice graphic. They've actually used like a winner's podium, and they've used the size both of the image of the coffee cup and also the size of the font to really illustrate. It's very, very easy to glance at that and understand with no further thought what the bestseller is. To know the difference between the cappuccino, the Americano, and the mocha on our second image, they probably would have had to add extra information like a percentage or something. Here, with our first image, we don't need to worry about that. It's very simple to understand what's going on. When it comes to colours, you can use your brightest colours to draw attention to the most important elements. With your fonts, you make your headings the largest, the biggest is the most important, then your subheadings, then your normal text. It's going to naturally bring structure to your presentations as well. I mentioned about visuals being able to help you to simplify concepts. All right. So often when we're presenting, we want to convey quite complex information. One of the reasons for presenting is to aid people's understanding. So if we use visual representation to do that, it can really help, as we've discussed. So we've seen already some different types of visuals. Bar charts, really great for making comparisons against numbers. Maps, as we've got here on the screen, great for place-based information. Here I've got a list of international store locations. I would have to, if I just had this as a slide with a list of words, I'd have to then sit and think, oh, well, is that a lot? Are they around the world? Where are they missing? They pop that exact same information onto a map, and I can see at a glance that they've got some great coverage across the world. I can see that there might be some gaps, that there might be, opportunities, and they can see whereabouts. If I was right down here, I would know which would going to be my closest operation. Diagrams, mind maps, Venn diagrams, flow charts, line graphs, lots of different options to try. And if you want to bring less about just data and more about into the emotion, then when you're choosing your images, photos of human faces are really great to convey, that emotion, to draw those emotions out. And I mentioned already inclusivity. Okay, so one of the fantastic things visuals can do is take away language barriers, because no matter whether English or whether the language you're presenting in is everybody's first language, whether not everybody finds it easy to read language for a multitude of reasons. When you use imagery, that really helps with inclusivity. But also think about things like vision-wise inclusivity. Not everybody can see colours in the same way. Colour vision deficiency is a good way to describe somebody who has difficulty seeing colours. Different people experience different things, but by using great use of contrast, by using colour in a way that is thinking about making it as easy as possible for everybody to see, you can make your presentations a lot stronger. It's much easier to read this dark text on a light background than it is light on a dark. The font's slightly stronger. It's just the contrast makes it a lot easier to read. When we're looking at these, our ticks, these are all very similar, and they're just using slight variations in colour to tell our story. Whereas these ones, we've got lots. There's a strong visual element. And use bigger fonts where you can, because people at the back are much more likely to be able to see. All right then, that's our wrap-up time. How are you going to make your graphics stand out in your next presentation? Let Fran know if there's something from today that has been a real light bulb moment for you, something that you're going to try in your next session. Other than that, thank you so much. I hope you got some useful tips for designing those graphics. If you want to get involved with more training from Google Digital Garage, head to the website. It's listed in the description below. It's going to help you continue with your learning. Other than that, thank you. Thanks to Fran for being an amazing moderator as always. My name's been Christine, and it's been my delight. Can't wait to welcome you to another Google Digital Garage training session sometime soon.